You're listening to the Parents of Hardworking Teens podcast, episode 134. If your teen is losing marks in exams due to small slips or silly mistakes when they're under time pressure, then this episode is for you, because I'm going to share a real student story where we needed to dig deeper to identify the exact issues that were stopping them getting the marks that they could in their maths exams. And I'm going to share how your teen can do this too for any subject. I'm Katie Jones, and with over 15 years in education as an award-winning high school teacher, international external examiner, and as a study coach, I've helped thousands of students skyrocket their results and confidence. And this podcast is where I share all my insights, tactics, and tips with you, the parent, so you can help your hardworking teen get happy, smart, and successful in their study, and have you both enjoy the journey along the way. This is the Parents of Hardworking Teens podcast. Hey VIPs, I hope you and your teens are doing fantastically. I am recording this the morning after the Exam Mastery Workshop Live 2025. And it was amazing. It was fantastic. There were so many awesome, committed, dedicated students there learning how to get more marks with more confidence and less stress and less of the guesswork in their exams. We covered so much. The skills to dissect any question so they know exactly what it's asking, getting the training and techniques to be able to then deliver that in their responses and do it confidently and succinctly and super effectively. I have to admit, I was a little bit worried this morning that my voice might be a bit croaky because it was a half-day workshop over 3 hours of me delivering this training, what with the Q&A at the end as well. There were some really great questions in that Q&A, really specific and considered and smart questions that students were asking. So that's what took us over the 3 hours, and it was so good. I actually think my voice is going okay. You will be the better judge of that listening to this. Now, if your teen couldn't make it live to the workshop, or you're only just hearing about it now, then the full workshop recording, the workbook, the special included bonus resources, which are 5 better ways to use past papers, and also 17 ways to make revision more active and therefore faster, more effective. This will be available for you to purchase for your teen in the coming week or so. It will be at www.greattransformation.com/ the letters EMW, which stand for Exam Mastery Workshop. Now, it will take us a little while to get all of that set up, but I will put the direct link into the show notes so it's there ready for when it is ready. And I'll also send you out an email if you're on my email list to keep you posted. Because I can tell you, having now delivered everything, that if your teen could use the details, the insights, the training, the concepts on exam technique, exam prep, exam performance, extended responses, short responses, how to reach the criteria on the mark scheme, how those criteria are actually written, how the questions are worded, and what to do with them, then the Exam Mastery Workshop is it. It is the full solution. So now let's get into this week's episode, which is definitely linked to exams, but actually comes from a coaching moment I had on a consult with a new enrollee into my coaching program. And that coaching moment was based on my realization over the years that we really need to be digging deeper when it comes to reviewing completed assessments or assignments, figuring out where marks were lost on exam papers, and how to do things differently, how to do things better next time. So this could be a situation where maybe your teen had some sort of disappointing results where marks were lost that they weren't really expecting to lose, like they thought they'd given a good answer. Maybe the overall result was lower than they thought it would be on an exam paper. Or maybe they had a good result, but they still want to figure out where maybe those 1 or 2 extra few marks could have come from. So I'm going to share with you a really specific example. I'm going to share with you what I discussed with this student so you can see what I mean. Because like I said, I got into this when I was on a consult with a student, and they were telling me that maths exams were becoming a real weakness for them. Now, this was a maths method student. So it's not that they weren't good at maths per se. It's not that they were weak in maths as a subject, but their actual maths exams were becoming a weak area. It was letting down their marks, and it was really denting their confidence. So we dug into this a little bit. And they told me that they were losing marks in like silly slips, little mistakes that were just cropping up and costing them, sometimes in small ways, maybe a mark lost here or there, but sometimes in bigger ways. Because honestly, a small slip or an error that happens early on in a big, lengthy, multi-part question or calculation can end up having a really big impact. And this is a pretty common issue. I definitely know it was an issue for me when I did my A-level maths back as a student, and that's basically the equivalent of Math Methods or Maths Advanced. And it especially happens or seems to increase when we are under time pressure, which is, of course, in an exam. Which is, of course, also when often the marks matter the most. So it's a bit of a double whammy negative happening here. Now, yes, just to be clear, there are follow-through marks. Sometimes we call these method marks, where you still get credit for following the correct method, but maybe you've used the wrong numbers from an earlier error. And that does happen. But there is still an impact. You still cannot get full marks if you do not have the end result correct. And honestly, the marks, that's not the only impact, but I'll get to that in a second. Now, what I've seen and heard over the years is that students just put that down as the issue, or teachers will state that as the issue, that the issue is they're just making silly errors or they're making small slips, and that's the issue that's costing the marks. And just to get more specific here for a moment, because this is literally what I'm trying to get at here, is to get more specific. These could be things like transcription errors, where we carry across information incorrectly when we actually write it down. Like we're putting in a plus instead of a minus when we do the next line of a calculation, or even as we're just copying out the question as part of our working. Or it could be a simple mental calculation error where we're kind of rushing and it's not a calculation we would need to necessarily put into the calculator, but because we are under time pressure, we make a little slip. Like saying 10 squared is 10 times 2 in our heads. So we end up with 20 instead of 100. Or it could just be accidentally writing the wrong units or using the wrong units, like using centimeters instead of millimeters. Maybe we just misread it, or we just, again, essentially like transcribed it incorrectly, which then is going to throw everything out by a factor of 10. And these little slips or simple mistakes do tend to happen more when we are under time pressure. And yes, they can totally mess up an answer, but yes, we can still get method marks. However, what it also messes up is our timing. Because if we get halfway or even the whole way through a big question and we realize this just isn't right, like something has gone wrong somewhere. So often this will happen if we've got something like a negative value and there's just no way it can be a negative, let's say. Or we've got to calculate an angle and we've ended up with a number that's bigger than 360. We know that we need to go back, we need to backtrack or start again. And that takes time away, of course, from the other questions. And when I'm talking about these issues, I want to be clear that these aren't coming from not knowing something or not understanding something from the subject or from the topic or from the concepts properly. They are not from something like an incorrect decision or using the wrong formula or just doing the calculation wrong. These issues don't come from not knowing things or not being good at the subject. These are just simple little errors that slip by, but they are certainly not always as simple to fix. It's almost like they're just so small that they're just slipping through the net and we don't know what to do with them. There's not like one big blinding issue that can necessarily be fixed. But this is the thing I want to touch on, because like everything with exam skills or exam technique, these things are fixable. But the first step is that we need to get a lot more specific. We need to dig deeper than just saying, okay, well, the issue is that we're making silly slips. We need to spotlight exactly what those are if we're going to bring more awareness to them and then actively take steps to overcome them. And please substitute in here any subject or exam issue for this. This is not just for maths. It might be something like skipping or missing certain punctuation or grammar under pressure in English exams. It might be things like mixing up units in chemistry exams. Or another example of having sort of general feedback, like marking up the issue as something much more general than we need it to be, would be things like, oh, they need to give more detail. They're not getting enough detail in. Or they're not really reading the question properly. Okay, blaming it on something that is too general, and we need to dig deeper in order to be able to find a specific solution. Whatever it is, we need to know what those slips are, or what are they glossing over when they're reading the question, or what part of the detail do they need? I have a specific training on this that I did as a booster session, a specific challenge session for my coaching members. And it was how to know where to put more detail. Because just as a side note for a second, I have talked before about how there are 3 steps to analysis. And I see this so often that when students get a little comment next to, let's say, their essay or their extended response, and it says something like, add more detail, I want them to know, what is it they're supposed to be adding more detail to? Which of those 3 steps is lacking in their analysis? Only then can we start to actually fix the issue. Now, to come back to this student that I'm talking about here today, what I did was I directed them to a specific resource I have on 18 ways to tackle calculation-based questions accurately and effectively. Now, if you want a taste of this, especially if this is happening for your teen in their maths exams, then I recommend going to check out episode 17 of the podcast, How to Stop Losing Marks in Maths Exams. That's such a good, does what it says title for the episode. Not only do I go into some of these issues in more detail there, but I also have a free resource download there with 5 of the tips that I have in that big member resource to avoid the most common maths exam mistakes. So you can find all of that at www.rocksolidstudy.com/17 or scroll through on your podcast app wherever you're listening to this and go find episode 17 with that title. I will put a link to it in the show notes here as well. But today, what I really want to focus on is that process of going that level deeper, that step further in digging in and identifying the real issues that are at play, no matter the subject, no matter the types of questions or responses or the type of exam. So I gave this student the action step of going back through a couple of their most recent maths exams and actually looking at what were those slips. Was it a plus instead of a minus? Was it a mental calculation error? Was it a transcription error? Specifically, what actually were the slips that they were making? Because if we just stop at the culprit being simple slips or silly errors, it's very hard to do anything about that. Once we get clear on exactly what those slips or mistakes are, then we can take steps to actually address them. So I said to them, just pick out the top 2. Now, top 2 could be considered in a couple of ways. It could be the 2 most common ones, or it could be the 2 that were leading to the biggest mark losses. So that's something to just consider on a situational basis. But even just the awareness of them will help their brain, and this is the case for any of us, it'll help our brains put more focus onto what those issues are, being aware of them, looking out for them, being across them. But more than that, we can then put in some specific strategies to really ensure that we are proofing against them. Tangible, active proofing strategies specific to those exact mistakes or silly errors or small slips. And I really encourage your team to do the same, to not just say, oh, I just really tend to mess up my writing or my grammar in my extended responses when I'm under exam pressure, or my writing just goes downhill. Whatever it is it something like having run-on sentences that just really need some full stops and commas in there? That is something I see happening quite a bit, in which case the specific issue is I need to break up my points or my information into smaller sentences. I need to be using full stops between each different point. And then, okay, that's good to know. We have spotlighted that, even being aware of it, having it stuck up on my wall for whenever I'm doing exam practice questions, or having it in the front of my workbook when I'm doing it for classwork or anything else. But then what specific strategies can I actually put in place to proof against that issue in an exam? Now, this is where we need to create some specific action steps and have them practice them now so they almost become second nature. They become automatic to use those checks or those proofing steps in the exam hall. The point is that when we have vague or general descriptions of what the issues are, we really need to dig deeper to get clarity on what they actually are, or what is it actually that is losing them easy marks, or exactly what are those little mistakes or small errors? What are those actual errors consisting of? Because just saying that I lose easy marks or I make silly mistakes, that is not helpful when it comes to trying to address the issue. That's just like a category of issues. We need to dig into things further to find the actual specific things that are happening, because a vague problem is very tricky to solve. It is much easier to come up with a specific solution that's also much more likely to be effective when it's directly matched to a specific problem. Just like the feedback of needs more detail is too vague. We need to know exactly how to do that, where to do that. Do we know which of the 3 aspects of analysis we need to work on, add to? Because adding more to the wrong step is not going to get us any more marks. We've already ticked that box. You can't get the same marks twice. You know by now that I am all about the how and the nitty-gritty details. So if you would like my help and experience in doing this for your teen, that is exactly what I do with your teen on their personal one-to-one game plan consult with me, which is what they get when they join Next Level Coaching. And if your teen is in year 12 right now and you are worried, is it just too late to make a difference? Then please stop worrying right now. It is absolutely not too late. And I even have a specific Finish Strong focus group right now to do exactly that, i.e. make a difference. Now, additionally, if your child is in the early years, if they're in year 7 or 8 and you're just wanting for them to get a head start, then I am also currently running the Study Smart Blueprint for these students. So the best thing to do if you are interested in anything like this is to just send an email to support@rocksolidstudy.com. Let me know where things are at for your teen, and I will then send you the relevant information. And side top tip, all of my coaching students get access to the Exam Mastery Workshop as part of their membership. So if that is something that you missed out on for them live, but you would love for them to have access to the full recording, the workbook, all associated resources, then this is a great way to do it. I will eventually, like I said, have the recording workbook available to purchase, and I will keep you posted on that. But this way, you get the coaching as well. And I am a girl who likes getting most bang for my buck, so I thought I would share that with you. So, digging a level deeper, getting specific about exactly where those easy marks are being lost or where silly slips are being made, exactly what type of small mistakes are happening. That is my advice for today. I would love to hear some feedback on this. Maybe if you use it, what did you discover? What is your teen actually going to do to overcome whatever it is they uncover and spotlight? Because honestly, hearing the reality of these things for students in real life, in real time, means that, well, number one, I just love to hear about how this is helping because, of course, that makes me feel good. But also what it means for you is that I can produce more free resources, more trainings that are of most use to you and your teen. And that is what this is all about. So let me know what you come up with. I hope that you get some useful light shed onto things. And here is to a future of less lost marks and much more exam success. I will see you back here next time. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll catch you soon. Bye. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure you head on over to www.rocksolidstudy.com and sign up for my free parent guide. The 3 huge mistakes even smart students make in exams and assignments and how to fix them immediately. And I'll see you back here next week.